People whispered about it, saying the freshest omakase was a dining experience unlike any other. Of course, a food lover like me couldn't resist the temptation, so I made a reservation for tonight, eager to see what all the fuss was about. As soon as I stepped inside, the scent of fresh fish, soy sauce, and something unidentifiable, a rich, almost metallic scent, hit me. I couldn't place it, but it made me uneasy. I took my seat, noticing that I was the only customer. Odd, given the restaurant's reputation, but perhaps I had come at an off time. The silence of the place pressed down on me.
いらっしゃいませ.
Suddenly, a tall, thin man standing behind the counter, his face partially obscured by the shadows. His eyes made me feel like prey being assessed by a predator.
Welcome to the freshest omakase. I'm Chef Kaito. You must be Mr. Williams?
His voice was calm, but there was something strange. Yes, that's me. I've heard a lot about this place.
Then you know that tonight's meal is a journey. Each dish tells a story. I hope you're ready for something unforgettable.
I nodded, my heart beating a little faster. The first course was served, a delicate slice of sashimi, almost translucent, drizzled with a bright green sauce. The taste was incredible. A burst of the ocean tempered by the sharp tang of the sauce. I relaxed slightly, letting the flavor distract me from the unease that had settled in my gut. The second course followed quickly, a beautifully plated dish of seared meat. The type I couldn't immediately recognize. The texture was soft, almost buttery, and it melted on my tongue. I looked up at Chef Kaito, who was watching me intently, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. This is delicious. What is it? I asked. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes.
A rare delicacy. It's part of the experience that our guests trust us completely.
Something about the way he said completely made my mouth go dry. I chewed harder to try to remember what it tasted like. The strange metallic scent in the air was stronger now, almost overpowering the aroma of the food. As the courses continued, each dish more exquisite and complex than the last, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The flavors were unlike anything I'd ever tasted, rich and deep, with a lingering aftertaste that was both intoxicating and disturbing. I tried to ask about the ingredients again, but each time Chef Kaito would simply smile and offer vague, evasive answers. By the time the sixth course was placed in front of me, my nerves were frayed. The dish was a small, intricately arranged platter of thinly sliced meat in the shape of rose, garnished with a blood-red sauce. The smell of iron filled my nostrils, almost overwhelming. My hand trembled slightly as I picked up a piece with my chopsticks, bringing it to my lips. The taste was familiar, too familiar. My heart pounded as I chewed slowly, my mind racing to identify the flavor. And then it hit me. A memory, a smell, something from years ago when I had cut my finger deeply on a piece of glass. It was the taste of blood. I dropped the chopsticks, my stomach turning. What is this? I asked, my voice shaking. Chef Kaito's smile widened, showing too many teeth.
The pinnacle of culinary art is not just to create something delicious, but to create a connection between chef and diner. This dish, this experience, is the ultimate connection.
I stared at him, the realization dawning with a sickening horror. This isn't animal meat, is it? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The truth was there in his eyes, in the cruel twist of his smile. I pushed back from the counter, my chair screeching loudly on the floor. My hands shook violently, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I have to go, I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. But as I turned to leave, the door to the restaurant clicked shut. I hadn't noticed it before, but now it was unmistakable. The door had locked automatically. Chef Kaito stepped out from behind the counter, moving slowly toward me.
Leaving so soon, Mr. Williams? But the best is yet to come.
I backed away, but he kept advancing, his steps slow and deliberate. My mind raced, desperately trying to think of a way out. The room seemed to close in on me, the shadows stretching and twisting as if alive. Please, I don't want any more, I begged, my voice trembling. His voice was cold now, the pretense of hospitality gone. Then he pulled out a long, thin blade, its edge glinting wickedly in the dim light.
But Mr. Williams, you haven't even tried the final course.
I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. The blade was stained, the dark smudges unmistakable.
This dish requires the freshest ingredients. It's the only way to truly savor the experience.
I bolted toward the door, but he was faster. His hand clamped down on my shoulder with a grip like iron, spinning me around. The last thing I saw was the gleam of the blade descending toward me. As darkness closed in, I heard his voice one last time.
Thank you for dining with us, Mr. Williams. We hope you enjoyed the experience.
It was past midnight, and my room was lit only by the blue glow of my computer screen. I was always curious about the boundaries of technology, so I decided to test the limits of an AI art generator. I'd been messing around with different prompts just for fun. Then an idea popped into my head, a twisted, dark idea that I immediately regretted. I typed in, "the face of my killer." As soon as I hit enter, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The AI whirred into action, and I stared at the screen, waiting. Normally, the AI would produce 4 different images, each slightly off in some way, distorted fingers, mismatched eyes, or odd backgrounds. But this time, something was different. The screen flickered and 4 images appeared. All the same, the face was hauntingly realistic. No warped features or strange lighting. Just the same man, repeated 4 times. He looked to be in his 30s, with greasy auburn hair slicked back from his pale, sweaty forehead. His lips curled into a sneer, as if mocking me for even daring to summon him. He wore a filthy black t-shirt under a grimy red and black apron, leaning casually on a dirty formica table in a grimy kitchen. A chainsaw rested on the table, perfectly rendered as if it had been photographed. But it was his eyes that caught my attention. Beady black eyes that seemed to look straight through the screen and into my soul. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was staring directly at me. The clock on my screen read 1:13 a.m. How long had I been staring at that face? Anxiety clawed at my chest, and I had an overwhelming urge to delete the image, block the AI. But instead, I typed in a new prompt. The face of my future lover. The AI churned out distorted, shadowy figures, none of them remotely similar to the man in the previous image. I tried other prompts. A friend's face, my next-door neighbor, a stranger at the park. Nothing. No matter what I tried, none of the images came close to resembling the man who seemed so real, so present. Maybe it was just a glitch, I told myself. A one-off error in the software. But deep down, I wasn't convinced.
Hey, Bobby!
The next day, I couldn't get the man's face out of my mind. He haunted my thoughts, his sneer mocking me whenever I closed my eyes. I still couldn't believe what happened last night, so I ran the AI again. I typed another prompt. What is my killer doing right now? The response was unsettling. A blurry image that gradually revealed itself to be a man lying on a mattress in a dimly lit room. I felt a chill as I recognized the same man from the previous images. The realism was unnerving. It was like a photograph taken from some unseen camera in his room. I tried another prompt. Show me my killer's house from the street. This time, the images were even more detailed, showing a nondescript house with a broken fence and a rusted car in the driveway. I could even make out the street sign in the background. I looked up the address on the internet, and it was real and only about 5 kilometers from me. The whole thing felt too real, too specific. I told myself it was just a coincidence, a fluke of the AI's programming. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a coincidence. I became obsessed, spending hours generating images of this man's life. I knew his name was Ronnie from a name tag in one of the images. I saw his messy room, his girlfriend Katie, and even the brand of cigarettes he smoked. The more I saw, the more I felt like I was intruding on something private, something forbidden. But Ronnie seemed to sense it too. The images showed him getting more paranoid, looking over his shoulder, staring directly into the camera as if he knew I was watching. Finally, I decided to stop. The whole thing was getting out of hand. But just as I resolved to let it go, the AI showed me something that froze my blood. I'd typed in the prompt, "My killer right now." Ronnie stood in the dim kitchen, gripping a saw, its blade slick with blood. His eyes locked onto mine with a twisted grin, daring me to move. On the floor, in dark, smeared letters, the chilling words, "I can see you too," were written in blood, adding an air of ominous dread that made my heart race. I shut my computer, heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't just a glitch anymore. This was something far more sinister, something that defied explanation. I tried to stop after that, but I couldn't. It was like an addiction. I needed to see more, to know more. Every day I'd check in on Ronnie, watching him as he went about his life, feeling a sick thrill at the thought that he might somehow know I was there and planning to kill me. Then one day the images stopped being so mundane. I typed in, "My killer, current location," and the AI generated a view of a street that looked unsettlingly familiar. It was my street. My hands shook as I refreshed the image, again and again, watching as the figure drew nearer. It was Ronnie, without a doubt. He was coming for me. Panic set in. I locked every door and window, grabbed the largest knife I could find, and sat in the dark, waiting. My computer screen showed my front door now, the image slowly processing. I didn't need to look. I already knew what it would show. The doorknob rattled. My breath caught in my throat as the door slowly creaked open. I raised the knife, my heart pounding in my chest. There he was, standing in the doorway, exactly as the AI had shown him.
You shouldn't have been watching. Huh?
I matched with Ron on Tinder a few days ago. His profile was sparse, just a few pictures and no bio. Despite that, I found myself intrigued by his appearance. After a few exchanges, he invited me over to his place. 2 red flags already, no bio and an immediate invite to his house. But he assured me he wasn't a catfish. I suggested we meet for a drink first. That way, if things went south, I could make a quick exit. When I saw him at the pub, I was blown away. Ron had the flashy, polished appearance of a silver screen star from a bygone era. Dressed in a stylish trench coat, his striking blue eyes gleamed under the dim light. As I moved in for a hug, he redirected me to a firm handshake, his thick winter gloves feeling odd given the roaring fireplace nearby. We ordered drinks, Guinness for me, tap water for him, and started talking about our lives. When I mentioned my job in IT, he yawned sarcastically. "What do you do then?" I asked, chuckling. "I'm between jobs," he said. "Between what and what?" "Between a surgeon and anything that doesn't involve bodily fluids," he replied, his tone darkening as he mentioned a traumatizing experience in medical school. He quickly changed the subject. "Anyway, let's talk about your sex life." Caught off guard, I spit out my Guinness. He cleaned up the mess with a wet wipe from his pocket and then meticulously aligned the placemats and ashtray. Ron mentioned he had some kinks, which made my heart race a little. He asked if I was ready for another drink, and I was, although I sipped it slowly, mindful of my low alcohol tolerance. "Don't take this the wrong way, but are you real? What's the catch here? Am I going to wake up tomorrow missing a kidney?" He chuckled. "I'll be honest, there is a catch, but promise you won't make fun of me?" I crossed my heart. Leaning in close, he whispered, "I'm a clean freak. If you come back to my place tonight, I need you to wash yourself the second we get there. Those clothes will need cleaning too. I have a fresh pair you can borrow, and you must brush your teeth. Also, do you have an earwax remover? If not, you can borrow one from my kit." I asked if he was serious. "Deadly. I can't stand filth. I need you spotless. Sounds good?" Feeling like I'd hit the lottery, I agreed. In his car, Ron handed me a breath mint, probably because of the lingering scent of my aunt's cottage pie on my breath. He drove us to a modern house on the edge of a forest, its sterile white exterior contrasting sharply with the surrounding pine trees. The moment we stepped inside, the smell of disinfectant stung my nose. The place was immaculate, like something out of an IKEA catalogue. Everything was covered in plastic, and 2 stuffed kittens stood guard on the landing. "Adorable, aren't they?" Ron said when he caught me staring. His universe was shrink-wrapped in cleanliness. I kicked off my shoes and followed him to the bathroom. He watched as I stripped, his neutral expression stinging. He sealed my clothes in a Ziploc bag and handed me specific soap and shampoo. Fighting the urge to be sarcastic, I stepped into the shower. In the lounge, he handed me a shot of something fruity and sour. We clinked glasses, and I took a seat on the slick plastic sofa. Almost immediately, my head grew heavy, and the air became stale. I fell to the floor, and everything went blurry. I struggled to stay conscious, my brain unable to piece together what was happening. When I looked down, Ron was grinning wickedly, wrapping my legs in shrink wrap like an Egyptian mummy. "Shh, this won't take long," he said, straddling me. His lips brushed my ear. "I'm going to take care of you. You look so handsome, all lovely and spotless. I'm just making sure you stay that way. Forever." His tongue slid into my ear. And bite. He bited me. He gently wiped the blood from his lips as if he had just savored a delicious meal, then left to fetch medical equipment. Panic surged through me. I needed to escape. I struggled, but Ron's grip on my ankles tightened. "Stop it! You're messing everything up." With all my strength, I rolled off the bed, hitting the wooden floor hard. I opened my mouth to groan, but instead a torrent of vomit erupted, spraying chunks of cottage pie everywhere. I made it to the kitchen and pulled myself up to the counter, searching for a sharp object. I finally grabbed a knife, stabbing at the wrap until my arm came free. Ron burst into the room, a syringe in hand. He lunged at me, but I caught his forearm, smearing vomit across his face with my other hand. He convulsed violently, dropping the needle. I grabbed a pan and hit his head until he went limp. In the hall, I called 911. The operator struggled to understand me but dispatched help. My memory blurred, and the next thing I knew, emergency responders were surrounding me. At the hospital, Ron claimed I attacked him, but when police searched the area, they found a decomposed body wrapped in plastic, confirming my story. Ron denies any wrongdoing, but with the evidence, he faces justice. For me, I'm recovering mentally and ready to find love again, this time being careful not to ignore any red flags.